friend. Welcome to the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I'm your host, Emily Cleghorn. This podcast is for mamas navigating childhood trauma while also walking through mamahood. Together, we will empower each other to connect with who we were created to be versus who we were told to be in our trauma. I'm so excited that you've decided to take some time out of your day to join me and tune in. I hope you find this podcast uplifting and empowering. Let's get to it. Today, I am so excited to be having a conversation with Karen Robinson. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, no problem at all. So excited for our conversation. So Karen, why don't we get started just by you introducing yourself and sharing a little bit of your story and what brought you to Health Thrive Dream.
Sure. So I am a trauma survivor and also a trauma recovery coach.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a dysfunctional family where there was domestic violence and childhood abuse and also poverty. And so I knew as a young child and as a young woman that I didn't want my future to have the same kind of atmosphere or condition. I knew I didn't like the way I felt growing up in that situation. I had a suicide attempt when I was about 12. And then before 14, I had run away from home. And then after that, my life did change for the better. I really buckled down at school and worked towards getting a full scholarship to the University of Maine. And then since then, there's been bumps, of course. Nobody has a perfect life, right? I've had some hard relationships and so forth. But right now, things are going super well, and I'm really excited about that. So thank you. Oh, Heal Thrive Dream. Heal Thrive Dream is a company that I launched with my daughters. I have 2 young daughters, and we just wanted to do something to show women, especially moms and daughters too, that we understand that there's a lot of oppression and a lot of trauma. There's trauma for boys and men as well, but it's more prevalent with females. And so we just wanted to do something to show our support. And we offer products that are healing, inspirational. We offer coaching. I'm also a full-time a mental health therapist. So the coaching I do is more around a little less therapy and a lot more learning how to be accountable to the new way you want to live, your new lifestyle, your new habits, the changes that you want to make. So I think that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. So when did your healing journey really begin? Was it when you were after the age of 14, or was it when you became a mom?
Oh, that's such a good question. I hadn't really thought about it like that before. So I really didn't have any kind of counseling as a teenager. I did do something on a spiritual level. I started working with a mentor. Her name was Van. She has since passed away. And so she helped me with things like my first communion. And this was also in New Brunswick, by the way. I know that's where you're located. I'm located in Virginia. I don't know if you remember that. But I spent a lot of my childhood in New Brunswick. And Van was very special. She helped me prepare for this religious experience called, First Communion, which is a Catholic tradition. And one of the things, she had asked me about my story one time, and she just was super sweet and was very encouraging and just reminded me that despite everything that I've gone through, that God loved me. And she just made that very clear. She gave me my own personal Bible and written that in. So I feel like that was pretty healing. I think the friendships I had throughout high school was a super positive experience. I think that was also very healing. I lived with my aunt and uncle who had stability. You know, they were middle class. So we always had food. We had nutritious food to eat. I didn't worry about whether the bills were going to be paid. They took care of their family. And so it just felt more secure. And security, getting your basic needs met is also very healing. And then when I had counseling maybe for the first time in college. So I got to experience what it was like to actually just share my story and get encouragement and validation. But the first really, really, really good therapist I had that started working on the family trauma was indeed right after my daughter was born. So
Wow.
I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't thought of that before. And it wasn't the being a mom part piece, I think. It was a combination of being in an unhealthy marriage at the time, too. And so that and not getting, I didn't have a solid family of origin to help me with this transition to being a mom, but then also not having a supportive partner, the two together was like, so yeah, I had a really great therapist who told me about the book, Dan Siegel's book, Parenting from the Inside Out. So I learned how to reparent myself and learn to really evaluate what would be important to me in my mom journey. So that was truly healing for sure.
So what was the biggest action step that you took to on your healing journey that you that you benefited from the most, that made the biggest impact?
So at that point, the biggest impact was just simply journaling. Like I've always journaled through my lifetime, but in the Parenting from the Inside Out book, there's journaling prompts, and I did every single one of them. I wrote and wrote and wrote, and it was super releasing. Got to talk a lot about it in therapy. So it was like the exposure of therapy of writing and then speaking and then writing, the emotional intensity started to come down. And then after that, another pivotal point was when I became a therapist for the military, the United States military. It was shortly, let me see, my daughter was maybe 2 or 3 at the time, so not that long afterwards. And one of the psychiatrists there told me, well, he asked me, he said, we really need cognitive behavioral therapy for our military and their dependents. There's a lot of depression, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of anger. Is that something you can offer? And I said, well, I know about cognitive behavioral therapy, but I will do everything I can to offer those services to the population. And so I started studying group curriculums, and I ended up teaching CBT to military and their dependents or their spouses for over 17 years. And when I was first doing the teaching, I did all the homework myself, and that was life-changing. So I learned the importance of identifying what our triggers are, and then how we think about that trigger and how that impacts how we feel. And it was a lot of light bulbs, because the first time I understood that I had control over what I thought about and how that directly impacted my emotional health. That was very healing too.
Yeah, that's huge. Connecting that dot, that first of all, getting to know yourself on the level that you can recognize and know what is triggering for you all on its own is huge, because not a lot of people realize what triggers them. They just know that something sets them off, and it's like a domino effect. And then knowing that you have control. You're not powerless in the situation of what you think. You can control it, and you can control how you think about something. That's huge.
Yep.
That's
Mhm.
huge. So, what is
Yeah.
one action step that you would recommend for a mama who's listening today who knows that she needs something's got to change. She cannot continue in the tug of war that she's in, but she's not quite sure where to start.
Mhm.
So, what's one
Great. Yeah.
action step that she could take?
Yeah. Great question. I think if you're in a place where you're not sure where to start, what seems to make sense to me might be a concrete action step is to think about your life as having, or your day as having bookends. So
Mm-hmm.
the bookends being a morning routine and an evening before bed routine, and just starting there. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can even Google what are the top healthiest morning routines for new moms or moms, and what are the healthiest evening routines for moms. And once you start doing that, then you can worry about the rest of your day after, because this
Mm-hmm.
will set you up for success. It might be that, okay, let's say your child wakes up at 7. Hopefully it's not 5 or 6. Let's say it's 7. It might mean that you sacrifice some sleep in the beginning to get up before the baby, maybe 45 minutes or so, where you are doing some meditation, some guided
Mm-hmm.
meditation that tells you exactly what to do. Maybe it's moving your body for a little bit. It could just be a walk around the block. It doesn't have to be a marathon. So moving your body, doing something like with meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a little Bible study if you're spiritual. It could be any kind of spiritual text to kind of help ground you.
Mm-hmm.
So those are 3 things. Fourth thing that I heard that is really good to start the day with, where I tend to do it towards bedtime, is reading something that's you're really passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know you love quilting, reading about quilting. If you know that you want to be a leader at your church one day, reading about leadership skills, just something that helps you feel like you're working towards one of your passions. And then the bedtime routine, I know I was supposed to say one thing. So my cheat was saying bookends. That's one thing. So the
Mm-hmm.
evening routine is thinking about how to quiet your life down and your baby, quieting down for the nighttime ritual. What's soothing activities, soothing music. Turn off the TV as early as possible. And don't spend your whole evening watching TV because it stimulates the brain. Turning down the lights, turning, down, using soft music, using aromatherapy, journaling out any thoughts and feelings you have, doing something very quiet, centering breaths.
Mm-hmm.
And those, if you work on your bookends, it's really going to make a difference on how your day goes and how your day ends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that tip. If our listeners want to connect with you further, how can they do that?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to KarenRobinson360.com. And that has all my websites, my social media, my booking calendar. And we also have an online membership. It's virtual for women who are trauma survivors. We specialize in working with moms and also career mothers. It's an accountability group. It's a support group. And it's there to help keep you on track with whatever goals you want to set in your life to heal.
Awesome. So I will include a link to that webpage where you can find all of Karen's links in the show notes of this episode. So that's right in the description of the episode so that you can access all of that with ease, and you don't have to go searching high and low for it. And mom brain kicks in and you're like, where did that go? Hashtag real life. Thank you so much
Yes.
for for joining me today, Karen. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. If you resonated with what you heard, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share it with a friend who would also benefit, because we rise together. Until next time, Mama, keep shining.